My sister hid her pregnancy by my boyfriend. My parents knew and planned to keep it from me until the baby was born. The murmur of voices, low and conspiratorial, seeped through the thin wall of my mother's sewing room, a room usually reserved for the gentle hum of her machine and the scent of lavender sachets. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind that typically droned on with the scent of roasting chicken and the muted drone of a golf tournament on TV. I'd come upstairs looking for an old photo album, a nostalgic whim. But the words I caught, fragmented yet chillingly clear, froze me mid-step, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Can't let Clara find out. Not yet. It would destroy her. That was my mother, her voice tight with an anxiety I rarely heard. A deeper rumble, my father's. We just need a little more time. Until after the baby arrives. Then we figure out how to tell her. Or if, baby? My brow furrowed. Who was having a baby? My sister, Isabel, was single, career-focused, always dismissing talk of settling down. Then, Isabel's voice, sharper, laced with a defensive edge I knew all too well. It's not like I planned this, Dad. And Liam says he'll support me. He'll do the right thing. Liam. The name slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. My Liam. My boyfriend of 3 years. The man whose laughter was the soundtrack to my happiest memories. The man I'd been idly sketching wedding dress designs with only last week. My Liam and my sister, Isabel, discussing a baby. Their baby. The floor seemed to tilt. The air thickened, pressing in on me, making it hard to breathe. My carefully constructed world, a world built on trust and love and the unwavering belief in the goodness of the people closest to me, began to fracture, hairline cracks spreading with terrifying speed. Isabel was 5 years older, the golden child, the one who'd glided through life on a wave of academic accolades and effortless charm. She was a successful architect, her designs gracing the covers of glossy magazines. I, Clara, was the quieter one, the homebody, a librarian who found solace in the hushed reverence of bookshelves and the infinite worlds held within them. We were different, Izzy and I, but I'd always believed there was an unbreakable bond between us, a sisterly love that transcended our contrasting paths. And Liam was my everything. We'd met at a local bookstore, a classic meet-cute over a shared love for obscure poetry. He was a software developer, kind, intelligent, with eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, a smile I thought was reserved only for me. He'd seamlessly integrated into our family, charming my parents, teasing Izzy, becoming the son my father always wished he'd had alongside his 2 daughters. The conversation continued, oblivious to my silent, agonizing presence on the other side of the door. She's so fragile, Robert, Mom whispered. This, on top of everything, she'll never forgive us. Any of us. She's stronger than you think, Eleanor, Dad countered, though his voice lacked conviction. But the scandal, in this town, Isabel's reputation, Liam's, it's better this way. For now, keep it quiet. Clara doesn't need to know the specifics of how this happened. Specifics. The word was a poison dart. My mind, numb with shock, began to race, piecing together the horrifying puzzle. Izzy and Liam, my sister and my boyfriend. A secret affair. A pregnancy. And my parents knew. They were all in on it, weaving a tapestry of lies around me, treating me like a child, like a fool. How long? How long had this charade been going on? Months, it had to be. I replayed recent memories, searching for clues I'd been too blind to see. Izzy's sudden aversion to wine at family dinners, excused as a health kick. Liam's increasingly frequent late nights at work, his vague explanations, the subtle withdrawal I'd attributed to stress. The way Mom would watch me with a pitying expression I hadn't understood. It all clicked into place with sickening clarity. I stumbled back from the door, a choked sob escaping my lips. The photo album I'd been seeking lay forgotten on the landing. The past, the present, the future I'd envisioned. All of it felt tainted, irrevocably spoiled. The betrayal wasn't just Liam's or Izzy's. It was my parents too. The 2 people who were supposed to protect me, to guide me with honesty, had chosen to shield the perpetrators, to prioritize image and convenience over my heart, my sanity. I didn't confront them then. I couldn't. The words wouldn't form. I retreated to my room, the cheerful yellow walls suddenly oppressive, The scent of the vanilla candle Liam had given me now cloying and unbearable. I sank onto my bed, the weight of their deception crushing me. For hours, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming silently down my face, each one a testament to a trust shattered beyond repair. The next few days were a blur of forced smiles and hollow interactions. I moved through our family home like a ghost, observing them, these strangers who wore the faces of my loved ones. I saw the furtive glances between Izzy and Liam, the forced casualness in their interactions when I was near. I saw the strained solicitude in my mother's eyes, the gruff avoidance in my father's. They were all actors in a play, and I was the unwitting audience, now privy to the backstage machinations. The confirmation of the pregnancy came subtly. Izzy started wearing looser clothing. She'd complain of morning sickness, a knowing, anxious glance flickering towards my mother. Liam would hover, offering water, a solicitous hand on her arm, gestures that, just weeks ago, I would have interpreted as brotherly concern. Now, they were daggers to my heart. The confrontation, when it finally came, wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling. I chose a quiet evening, after dinner, when the four of them were gathered in the living room, the television murmuring in the background, a picture of domestic deceit. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the room like a razor. Her head snapped towards me. Liam's face went pale. Izzy flinched as if struck. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. My father's expression hardened, a shudder coming down. "Know what, sweetheart?" Mom asked, her voice trembling. "About the baby," I said, my gaze fixed on Izzy. "About you and Liam." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence, broken only by the frantic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, each tick a countdown to the inevitable implosion. Izzy was the first to break. Tears welled in her eyes, but they looked like tears of self-pity, not remorse. "Clara, I'm so sorry. It just happened. We never meant for you to find out like this." "Like this?" I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. "You mean, you never meant for me to find out at all? You were just going to let me go on, blissfully ignorant, while my sister carried my boyfriend's child?" Liam finally found his voice, a pathetic, stammering apology. "Clara, I messed up, royally. But Izzy, she needed me. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. A mistake." I turned on him, the pain giving way to a cold, hard anger. "Sleeping with my sister, getting her pregnant, and then lying to me for months. That's not a mistake, Liam. That's a calculated betrayal." My mother started to cry, soft, helpless sobs. "We were trying to protect you, darling." "Protect me?" I rounded on her, my voice rising. "By deceiving me? By treating me like an idiot? Who were you really protecting, Mom? Me? Or yourselves? Your perfect family image?" That's when my father stepped in, his voice firm, authoritative. "Clara, that's enough. What's done is done. Yes, mistakes were made. Grievous ones. But we are a family. And families stick together, especially in difficult times. Isabel needs our support. Liam is prepared to do right by her, by the child." He looked at me, his eyes hard, unyielding. "What we need now is for you to be strong, to be understanding. For the sake of this family, for the sake of that innocent child, we need to find a way to move forward. Quietly, without scandal." His words hit me harder than any physical blow. He wasn't asking for my forgiveness. He was demanding my complicity. He wanted me to swallow my pain, my humiliation, and help them maintain their carefully constructed facade of a happy, harmonious family. He wanted me to pretend that my heart hadn't been ripped out and stomped on by the three people I trusted most in the world. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "I'm just supposed to what? Pretend this never happened? Welcome my sister's baby, fathered by my ex-boyfriend, into the family with open arms? Smile and wave for the neighbors? It's the mature thing to do, Clara," he said, his tone implying I was being anything but. "Think of the baby. Think of Isabel's future. Think of our standing in this community." I looked at their faces, Liam, head bowed in supposed shame, Izzy, weeping into her hands, my mother, looking pleadingly at me, my father, stern and resolute. In that moment, I saw them clearly for the first time. Selfish, manipulative, and utterly devoid of empathy for the pain they had inflicted. Something inside me snapped. The grief, the shock, coalesced into a single, unwavering resolve. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "No, I won't. I can't. You talk about family, Dad, but this isn't a family. This is a conspiracy, and I refuse to be a part of it." I turned and walked out of the room, ignoring their calls, their pleas. I went upstairs, to my room, and began to pack. Not just a few things, but everything that mattered. My books, my clothes, the few sentimental items that weren't tainted by their betrayal. The next morning, I left. I left a note on the kitchen counter, simple and to the point. "I know everything. I can't forgive you. Don't try to find me." I took my meager savings, boarded a bus, and headed for the city, a sprawling, anonymous metropolis hundreds of miles away, a place where no one knew my name or my story. The first few years were a brutal lesson in survival. The city was indifferent to my pain, a concrete jungle that swallowed me whole. I found a tiny, roach-infested apartment in a rundown neighborhood. I worked 2, sometimes 3, menial jobs to make ends meet. Waitress, bookstore clerk, data entry temp. The days were long, the work exhausting, the pay barely enough to cover rent and instant noodles. But in the evenings, I dragged my weary body to night classes at the community college. I'd always dreamed of becoming a children's librarian, of fostering a love of reading in young minds. That dream, once a whimsical aspiration, now became my lifeline, the one flickering candle in the suffocating darkness of my new reality. The loneliness was a constant companion. I missed the easy comfort of family, the shared history, the inside jokes. Even though I now knew much of it had been a lie. I missed Liam, or rather, the Liam I thought I knew, the man who had made me feel loved and cherished before he revealed his true colors. Most painfully, I missed Izzy, the sister I'd idolized, the one I'd shared secrets and dreams with, long before she chose to betray me in the most intimate way imaginable. There were dark days, days when the weight of their betrayal threatened to drown me. Sleepless nights spent staring at the stained ceiling of my tiny room, replaying their words, their deceptions, the casual cruelty with which they had dismissed my pain. I developed trust issues, shying away from new friendships, terrified of being hurt again. The scars on my heart were deep, invisible to the outside world, but a constant, throbbing ache within me. But slowly, painstakingly, I began to rebuild. I focused on my studies, finding a quiet satisfaction in learning, in working towards a tangible goal. I made a few tentative friendships with classmates, women who, like me, were striving for something better, their own stories of hardship and resilience inspiring me. I learned to be self-reliant, to depend only on myself. The city, once intimidating, began to feel like a place of opportunity, a blank canvas on which I could paint a new life, free from the shadows of my past. I graduated with honors, landed an internship at a small community library, and eventually, a full-time position as a children's librarian in a vibrant, diverse neighborhood. The joy I found in a child's excited gasp at a story's climax, or the quiet concentration on their face as they sounded out new words, was a balm to my wounded soul. It was a pure, untainted happiness, something that was mine alone, something they couldn't touch. Years passed. 7. To be exact. I had built a life for myself, modest but fulfilling. I had my own apartment, small but clean and bright, filled with books and plants. I had a job I loved, a few close friends, a sense of peace I'd thought I'd never find again. I rarely thought about my family, or when I did, it was with a dull, distant ache, like remembering an old injury that still twinged in bad weather. Then, the letter arrived. Cream-colored, expensive-looking envelope, my mother's elegant handwriting on the front. My address, I realized with a jolt, must have been tracked down through old college records or some other impersonal database. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a plea for reconciliation. Mom wrote of her regret, her shame, her longing to see me again. She said Dad was older now, his health not what it once was, and he too missed me terribly. Isabel, she wrote, was a single mother. Liam, it seemed, hadn't stuck around for the long haul after the initial doing the right thing phase. Izzy's son, my nephew, was 6 years old, a bright, curious boy named Leo, who knew he had an aunt he'd never met. The letter was carefully worded, full of remorse, but I could still detect the undertones of their old manipulations. The guilt trips, the subtle pressure to be the bigger person, to let bygones be bygones for the sake of a family that had shown me so little consideration when it mattered most. My first instinct was to throw the letter away, to ignore it, to continue with the life I had so painstakingly built in their absence. But a small, treacherous part of me, a part one thought I'd buried long ago, felt a flicker of something akin to curiosity, perhaps even a sliver of hope. More letters followed, then hesitant phone calls. My mother's voice, choked with tears. My father's, softer now, tinged with a weariness I didn't recognize. They spoke of wanting to apologize in person, of wanting me to meet Leo, of wanting to heal the rift that had torn our family apart. Izzy called too. Her voice was different, stripped of its former confidence, imbued with a genuine-sounding humility. She apologized profusely, endlessly. She said she lived with the shame of her actions every day. She didn't make excuses. She just apologized. She told me about Leo, about the challenges of single motherhood, about how much she wished her son could know his aunt. I was torn. The anger, the hurt, were still there, a coiled serpent in my gut. The memories of their betrayal, of my father's cold dismissal of my pain, were still vivid, still capable of reducing me to tears if I let them. How could I forgive them? How could I ever trust them again? But then there was Leo, an innocent child, my nephew, and a part of me, a very small part, yearned for connection, for the imperfect, messy, but ultimately irreplaceable bonds of family. I agreed to meet them, not at their home, not on their turf, but in a neutral location, a park halfway between my city and their town. Seeing them again after all those years was like looking at distorted reflections in a funhouse mirror. They were older, visibly aged by time and, I suspected, by the weight of their own regrets. My mother's hair was grayer, her face etched with lines of worry. My father walked with a slight stoop, his once booming voice now softer, less certain. Izzy looked tired, the vibrant spark in her eyes dimmed, but there was a new maturity about her, a quiet strength I hadn't seen before. And then there was Leo, a small boy with Izzy's auburn hair, and I couldn't help but notice with a pang Liam's mischievous eyes. He was shy at first, hiding behind Izzy's legs, but eventually, curiosity won out, and he offered me a handful of crushed crackers with a hesitant smile. The apologies came, heartfelt and seemingly sincere. My mother wept, begging for my forgiveness. My father, his voice thick with emotion, admitted he had been wrong, terribly wrong, prioritizing image over his own daughter's heart. He said it was the biggest regret of his life. Izzy simply looked at me, her eyes full of a pain that mirrored my own, and whispered, "I am so sorry, Clara. There's not a day that goes by that I don't wish I could take it all back." I listened, my heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to rage, to unleash all the years of pent-up pain and anger. Part of me wanted to weep, to collapse into their arms and pretend that none of it had ever happened. And part of me, the librarian, the observer, simply watched, analyzed, trying to discern the truth beneath their words. There was a plot twist I hadn't anticipated in their narrative of remorse. My mother, in a moment of raw honesty, confessed something new. She admitted that her fear of scandal wasn't just about community standing. It was deeply rooted in her own past, a secret shame from her youth involving a similar family crisis that had torn her own parents apart. It didn't excuse her actions, but it offered a sliver of context, a glimpse into the complex, flawed humanity behind her choices. My father, too, revealed his own fears, the fear of failure as a patriarch, the fear of his family unraveling, fears that had led him to make cruel, misguided decisions. Izzy's confession was perhaps the most poignant. She admitted her affair with Liam hadn't been a grand passion, but a desperate, misguided attempt to feel seen, to feel chosen, fueled by her own insecurities and a competitive streak with me that I'd never fully grasped. Liam, she said, had been an escape, a terrible mistake that had cost her more than she could ever have imagined, primarily her relationship with me. She wasn't asking for my forgiveness to make herself feel better, she insisted, but because she genuinely missed her sister, the one person who had always understood her, even when she didn't understand herself. The day was emotionally draining. We talked for hours, tears shed on all sides. They didn't try to rush me, didn't pressure me. They simply laid their hearts bare, offering their apologies, their regrets, and a tentative hope for a future that included me. When it was time to leave, as Leo shyly waved goodbye, a handmade drawing of a lopsided flower clutched in his hand for me, I still didn't know what to do. The wounds were too deep, the betrayal too profound, to be erased by a single afternoon of apologies. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't a destination, but a journey, a long and arduous one. And trust, once shattered, might never be fully restored. In the months that followed, I kept in cautious contact. Phone calls, occasional video chats with Leo. I visited them a few more times, always on my terms, always maintaining a careful distance. The pain was still there, a dull ache that flared up at unexpected moments. But alongside it, something new was beginning to grow, a fragile understanding, a tentative willingness to explore the possibility of a different kind of relationship with these people who were, despite everything, still my family. I knew I could never go back to the naive, trusting girl I once was. Their betrayal had changed me, forged me in a crucible of pain and resilience. I had built my own life, my own fortress of self-reliance. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was a small gate in that fortress, one that could be opened, cautiously, to let in a little light, a little warmth, from a family that was, at last, trying to find its way back to me, not through deceit, but through the difficult, humbling path of truth and repentance. My healing is ongoing. The peace I've found is hard-won, and I guard it fiercely. Whether my family will ever truly be a part of that peace remains to be seen. But for the first time in many years, I am open to the possibility. And that, in itself, feels like a victory. The story isn't over. My story. And I am, finally, the one holding the pen.